What was the best moment you've seen where the real world hit a spoiled rich kid? I had a roommate my freshman year of college that came from an incredibly rich oil family from the Middle East. I remember him having the hardest time adjusting to not having someone else prepare him food. I remember waking up one morning and going to the kitchen and seeing him try to eat eggs and toast he had just prepared himself. He asked me how I normally prepare fried eggs because his tasted really crunchy. Turns out he had just cracked the egg hole into the pan and prepared it shell and all. I couldn't stop laughing but felt really bad for the dude. This kid. He was a 17-year-old in my dad's hometown that was known for driving fast and being an all-around asshole on the road. He had multiple speeding tickets and a DUI on record. At 17. The DUI incident was actually a car crash that totaled his car and led to him having his jaw wired shut. So what do his parents do? They give him his license back and buy him a brand new car, which I'm pretty sure was a WRX. Which crashed into a utility truck, killing himself, his sister and her friend while doing almost twice the speed limit on a residential road. I saw Justin Bieber throw a shit fit and end up not getting what he wanted. We have quarterly team building exercises at my company where you basically go and play mini golf or some other activity capped at $25/person. Sometime between 2009 and 2011, I really can't remember exactly, my group just decided to go for a fancy lunch in downtown Portland. After lunch we took one of our coworkers to the semi-famous Nike store, which was a couple of blocks away, and that was the day Justin Bieber happened to show up. When he and his entourage arrived, he said something somewhat loudly along the lines of, "Y'all are going to have to leave for a bit cause I'm here to do some shopping," and some of his people acted like they were going to try and politely force the already present customers out of the store so Bieber could shop alone, but the Nike employees even more politely told him that was not possible. At that point Bieber lost it. He threw a total tantrum because they wouldn't shut down the store for him. The tantrum didn't work and he and his folks left in a huff. That's really my only celebrity in the wild encounter, and it's freaking lame. Saw a college guy with a ridiculously expensive car, can't remember the model, rear-end this woman who drove an absolute beater. Her car was definitely totaled and his wasn't looking that hot either. He got out and started screaming at this woman. She was in tears. He kept telling her that she was going to pay for this. When the cops came, I saw each of them give their statements. After that, me and like 10 people came forward and gave our witness statements. It sounded like each and every one of us put complete fault on him, which was the truth. When the cops went back to him, I saw his face just sink. He probably told them it was her fault and just found out that 2 handfuls of people just confirmed that he's full of shit. I've never seen that many witnesses stick around for a simple traffic accident. I think the other people felt the same way I did. That kid was a douche and should be punished for what he did. One of my college roommates was very rich growing up. I didn't realize just how rich until I had to explain to her what a coupon was in very extensive detail. On multiple occasions she bragged that she wasn't even interested in her major, philosophy, or college in general, but she was at uni because her parents were requiring her to get a degree, any degree, in order to get access to her trust fund. I don't remember ever seeing her go to class, and she eventually got expelled sophomore year over academic dishonesty. I guess this was the last straw for her parents because they cut her off pretty soon after that. This actually served as a wake-up call. She somehow managed to get a public health degree at a different school in spite of the academic dishonesty listed on her transcript. She's doing pretty well for herself these days. We've kept in touch, and last we talked she was considering grad school. Here's a switch. Highly successful local doctor/politician expects son to attend medical school and become doctor. Son opts out, gets job with new company called Costco, pumping gas. He's been with that company ever since, just his regular pay raises and bonus checks give him a good life. He just didn't want the high stress life his dad had. Oh, I have one. I used to work at Starbucks and there was a girl that was just newly hired and in training. Mind you, she was 20 years old and her parents made her get a job. She grew up in a very wealthy family. On her first or second day, I had instructed her to do the dishes to help catch us up for closing. She looked at me with these lost eyes and told me she doesn't know how. Apparently she grew up with housemaids and literally has never cleaned a dish in her entire life. I had to teach her step by step how to clean a dish. About 10 years ago I was having a pint with a friend of mine. His family shit gold, I swear. I mentioned I was struggling with rent and bills while in college and he just said, "Get your mum to pay for it then, mate? She's disabled and we've never had real money." He instantly realized what he said and did feel bad about it. I think it was the first time he really understood that not everyone has their parents to lean on financially. This is not the best, as it's pretty sad and frankly undeserved, but a good example of the question asked. I went to a very expensive private elementary school. A friend of mine grew up very wealthy, her father a surgeon and mother a stay-at-home wife. They were very controlling of her and quite honestly, a little scary. They sheltered her to the extreme and she frequently repeated insane things they said verbatim because that was all she knew. If she was told to clean her room but left an item out upon her parents' inspection, they would throw the item out, no matter what it was. Once it was something very sentimental to her, can't remember what it was, and when she told me and I expressed sympathy, she said something like, "Oh no, it's okay, it's my fault." If I told my children to clean their rooms but they didn't and had their friends come over, their friends would go home and tell their parents about how much of a slob my family is and that can't happen. This was her concern at 10 years old. When it came time for college, they sent her to an expensive, hard to get into school and told her that her sole purpose there was to find a husband, specifically a doctor or an engineer, to keep her as a stay-at-home wife. She flat out told me this was her only purpose, which broke my heart because she is a smart person who was able to get into said school to begin with and her parents should have been encouraging different goals for her. Well, she found a boyfriend but at the end of her 4 years of undergrad, he turned out to be a cheating narcissistic douchebag. The narcissistic douchebag part was obvious to me from the get-go but she had no idea what a healthy relationship looked like, however the cheating was obvious enough to be a deal-breaker. So instead of going straight to marriage, which disappointed her parents and they kicked her out of the house, she suddenly had to become solely independent, find a job and an apartment and is doing well for herself. She's a totally different person now and has come a really long way. Somewhat distant relative spent all of his university years and 20s partying hard with the $120K allowance his rich company-owning father gave him each year. He'd travel the world each year going to Bali, Thailand, Europe, every year Oktoberfest, just rampaging. At 32 or so he decided to settle an upscale ski resort area of the US and open a business with his hot gold digger fiancée. When he went to transfer his money to his US bank account he noticed it only came to a few $1,000s. He angrily asked the bank worker why she hadn't transferred the entire amount only to be told that that was the entire amount. His father had cut him off without saying anything and he just hadn't noticed. Absolute flatline. While working in a casino here in Las Vegas, a herd of girls came to my window, and one proceeded to tell me about her great birthday party itinerary that her dad had paid for her 18th birthday. With no adult in the party. Just a bunch of teenaged girls, out in Vegas. Where none of them could do anything because none of them were 21. I couldn't even check them into their reservation. They start yelling and screaming at me, I calmly call security, and security tells them they can either go play in the arcade or leave and try to find a hotel off the strip that will take them in without being 21. The anger turns to tears, the security guard is unmoved. I went to school with a kid who always had a new fancy car or truck because his dad owned one of the biggest construction companies in the area. This kid was a major douche and double/triple parked his big trucks all the time. Once he got some sort of fast fancy car and went over 110 miles per hour and was getting chased by state police. He had friends in the car that were telling him to stop and slow down but he wouldn't. I believe he was also drunk. Boo it, he ended up crashing into a business doing a ton of damage. He got hit with 3 to 4 felonies. Driving over 100 miles per hour is a crime in most states and he got multiple kidnapping charges because the passengers were freaking out. Dude never came back to school and I have no clue what he's doing now. Freshman year of college, the guy across the hall from me is a spoiled rich kid from a big southern city. Old money clearly coming out his ass. A couple weeks into the second semester he and a buddy found a checkbook on the sidewalk. Stupid fuckers decided to write themselves a check and cash it in the bank that the account is in. The teller immediately called the cops and they both got arrested. We talked the night he got arrested and he laughed and said his dad would take care of it and everything would be fine. That weekend we met his dad as they moved everything out of the dorm since his dumb ass got expelled. Guess daddy didn't take care of it. I knew one who apparently couldn't fathom how people live on a budget. We used to hang out a lot at her insistence but she liked to eat at expensive places whereas I'd have no issue having my meals somewhere cheaper. However, she kept pouting and insisting I stay. I said I couldn't unless she wanted to spot me. She didn't. I then walked her through the math and showed her that the cost of my meals with her, every day, totaled my entire wage for the month. She didn't stop pouting but from then on I could eat by myself in peace. All throughout high school, for alphabetical reasons, my locker was right next to the son of the owner of a 200-store chain of convenience stores in our region. He was incredibly socially inept. I felt bad for him. We developed kind of a weird little friendship where we only ever talked at our lockers, but we had these little 2-minute deep conversations. Mostly focused on him getting bullied, and me advising him to just chill out and stop running his mouth so much because that was why it was happening. He was obnoxious to classmates and teachers alike, and he reveled in it. He'd brag about his family's money and just generally play the part of a spoiled rich kid, almost like he felt like he had to. He liked being hated/envied, to some extent, but he also hated being an outcast. He did listen when I told him about the stuff that was bothering me. I was shy and felt ignored and excluded all the time. There was absolutely a kernel of a good human being in him. He was actually an important person to me in a way. I never told anyone else about that stuff back then. His behavior came back to bite him the week after the Columbine massacre. He decided to purchase and wear a black trench coat to school in the style of the school shooters. After a few days of him wearing that throughout the day, just to be a dick, he got cornered by some kids and absolutely pummeled. They broke his nose. He was fucked up. He'd been basically asking for it, so I'm not sure what he expected. A kid from my high school came from a well-known family that was very involved in politics. He slacked off in school and was mostly a condescending ass for years. After graduation, he didn't really do anything, but eventually decided to run for office as he had the same name as his father. He won easily, because people didn't realize it was the kid. As a state rep, he posted on Facebook about enjoying his women battered rather than plain and asking to join the Black Caucus because he liked hip-hop. He also dropped a loaded gun on the floor in the middle of a session after fighting for the right to carry a gun in the state house as a responsible gun owner. He kept getting elected despite these issues because his family was well connected and he had a dedicated following from some political groups. After 6 years in office, he gets busted for soliciting sex from a minor over the internet. When they arrest him for that, they also discover he's been dealing drugs. The worst part is that his family is actually super nice and genuinely made the community a better place, but now they have to deal with all the issues from him. He was an apple that fell very far from the tree. Not a person, but a whole community. We live in a very rich school system, with loads of big money parents and their cocky "do you know my dad" kids. I'm one of the few who isn't. Now, our baseball team has a Team A and a Team B, one which plays in an upper league, and one that plays in a lower league. Me and a few of my friends, who had all played since we were little, played Team B, like we always do. But this year, our A team was filled with the richest brats, all of whom had $700 equipment, and bragged about how good they were. We won our league, and Team A placed in the bottom of theirs. Now, to feel good about themselves, at least I assume, they scheduled an exhibition match with us. We got badly trash talked during the whole pregame, about how all of our regular metal bats didn't even compare to their beautiful wooden ones with their names carved in and everything like that. Our coach told us not to hold back. We didn't. Fast forward 4 innings, and it's a forfeit from their coach, with a score of 13-0. They've gotten 2 people on base, but other than that, it's been shutout pitching from my brother on his catcher. We had stellar batting all around, and boy, did we feel good about that retribution. No joke here. Back in high school, 90s, this kid got a brand new Chevy Camaro. I had an old-ass 80s Pontiac Phoenix that had the straight 6. It was by far not a racing car, but this tool was just looking to brag at what he got compared to the busted cars we got. About 2 days later, while we were waiting at a stoplight, this idiot tries to race us as I am in my car and I pull up with my friends. He starts by revving it really loud and tries to do a burnout. Mind you, the light was red and the roads were not wet. So he managed to get a tiny burnout going, some smoke and whatnot. When his tires did catch traction, he went barreling into the intersection and smashed the car of the wife of one of the very few cops in my small city. Needless to say, that didn't work out for him very well. I knew this rich kid from high school that went off to college and partied every single night. His parents found out that he was failing basically all of his classes, so they secretly drove up early one Saturday morning with the spare set of keys to the car they had bought him and just drove off with the car. My wife was evicted from her dorm in college, dropped from her classes for non-payment, and had her car repossessed. Her dad was a CEO of a fairly large company and had an income north of $1 million per year in the late 90s. The company was being bought out and the board members all stood to make a ton of money each. They did background checks on everyone and found out that her dad lied about his experience in education. He did not have an MBA from Stanford. He did not have any college. He did not play in the NFL. He was not a decorated war hero. So they fired his ass so they could split his slice of the buyout amongst themselves. He never told his wife or daughter. He continued to run up debt and live the same lifestyle while being unemployed. He forged my mother-in-law's name on all sorts of loan and credit applications. Then, one day, he left them high and dry for a wealthy woman he had been having an affair with. He filed bankruptcy and managed, somehow, to get away pretty clean while leaving most of the crap in my mother-in-law's lap. My wife was completely ignorant of everything going on, and her father said he was still paying for everything. Her world came apart and he ghosted her for years. She gathered her composure and enrolled in community college. That is where we met. I taught her how to live a pretty decent life as a poor person. I had tons of experience being poor. Nearly 2 decades later, we are both making good money and have a family of our own. She learned a lot from that experience and has even reconciled with her dad. We keep him at an arm's length since he is a narcissist and a pathological liar, but at least she has a relationship with her father. A friend of mine from college whose parents were rich enough to have a multi-million-dollar home in America and in Europe used to shit on me for saying I was happy to go to whatever medical school I could get into. I ended up getting into my state school and she responded by saying that she could get into that school in a second because her mom has connections in the admissions department, but she would never bother applying there because it's not even a good school. She also made the same claim that her mom could get her into a specific top 20 ranked school. All through college she had this attitude with me about how even though I was doing better than her in classes, I was going to go to whatever school would take me and she was going to go to her dream school because that's just how the world works. I checked up on her on Facebook this year and she's not exactly at her dream school. It turns out she is at her state medical school, which is actually significantly lower ranked than the one she was making fun of me for attending. I don't want to say I was hoping she wouldn't get in anywhere because that's a little harsh, but I was happy to see her get put in her place a little bit. As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, show your support. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below.